Nixon. Of course, we have the man himself, the Stone, best-selling author Roger Stone, recently penned The Making of the President 2016 and is going to be a bestseller. What can we tell you about this week? It has been another display of leftist lunacy as the Donald Trump wrecking ball makes its way through the Washington, D.C. China shop, to mix metaphors there. The establishment gathering its forces, the leftist lawyers, no shortage of lawyers on the Democrats in the Democrats' ranks to attempt to gum up the works, file suits. We saw the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals panel come down with their decision in the immigration executive order case. And, of course, not unexpected, to say the least, that it would be against the administration. As an attorney, I can tell you straight away that I find this to be the most constitutionally imprudential decision that I've seen in a while. There is probably no case where an executive order was more righteous, I think, than in this instance. I personally, as a libertarian, as an anti-authoritarian, abhor the use of executive orders to supplant legislative process, to legislate from the White House, so to speak. But this was not an instance of that. President Trump was clearly within both statutory and constitutional authority to do what he did. And it touches on national security, which means this is particularly an area reserved for the executive. And this panel, just from their questioning, when I actually listened to the arguments live of the sides, the questioning alone was just, you could tell right away that they had a political agenda, political axe to grind. Right. Even Bush appointee, the third judge, which, of course, all your Democrat friends cite to you as, there's a Republican.
Call in if somebody gives him the number.
I think we have Roger with us.
Yes, indeed. Well, we just got some wonderful news. Alex Jones is going to call in for our last segment today. He's traveling, but I reached out and asked him to join us. Tyler, I love your legal analysis. You're absolutely right. The judicial tyranny of which is rampant in the country now threatens the Trump revolution. This is very much like when the courts thwarted Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the first 4 years of the New Deal. And it's clearly the tact they are going to take. We have a great show today coming to you from the Stone Zone. The Stone Cold Truth here on the Genesis Communications Network, bringing you a lot of the inside skinny on the Trump administration, but not pausing to talk about matters cultural or sartorial, but you're at the right place. Tyler Nixon, a proud descendant of the Nixon family, a great nephew, I guess it is, of Richard Milhouse Nixon, whose family landed in Pennsylvania, Delaware actually, and moved through Pennsylvania to Ohio. So we also have Dr. Zilli Donto, who is an attorney, human rights activist, poet, playwright, and a very courageous attorney. She has been fighting the corrupt regime in Haiti. She was among those who uncovered the rape of Haiti by Bill and Hillary Clinton. The rape of Haiti was addressed by President Trump in the campaign, and he said that he would be a champion for the people of Haiti. And we're going to talk about Omarosa and the corrosive role that she has working on behalf of the oligarchs in Haiti to deceive our president. We're going to talk about that as well. Then Dr. Jerome Corsi with Infowars Washington Bureau joins us to talk about David Brock and what he's up to. Tyler, I know you're a big fan of David Brock.
Oh, what a guy. What a guy. You couldn't pick a more emblematic scumbag. I'm sorry, don't have a better term for it, Roger. To tend to represent the lunatic authoritarian left than David Brock, who just has engaged in wholesale serial violations of every kind of campaign finance rule and principle that's been put in place in this country, coordinating and colluding with the Clinton campaign throughout directly. And let's not kid ourselves. I mean, this is how it went, to attack and destroy anybody who dared run afoul of the Clinton machine.
They're bullies, and they're using fascist-type tactics to censor people. They're about censorship, as Stalin was, as Hitler was. I mean, these fanatical little bully boys who work in this enterprise they have no regard for truth. They have no regard for accuracy. It's a big smear machine. They parade themselves around like they're respectable. They've now taken over Crew, which was once a nonpartisan pro-ethics nonprofit. They have basically acquired it. They think they can pretend to be a submarine, but they will be a front who doesn't want to look into David Brock's money laundering activities, but wants to look into the campaign finance filings of others. Well, no one's falling for that one. Crew is David Brock. It's a partisan, left-wing, crazy organization designed to cover the truth.
Well, that's a shame to see another what was at least ostensibly some type of decent organization that had some level of pursuit of ethics, as is in the name, ethics in Washington. But that's how the left operates, Roger. They co-opt decent organizations and corrupt and destroy them.
But an interesting piece by Jason Unger this week, I think, writing in the Washington Post, that Steve Bannon is right when he says the press is the opposition, and that's how it should be. Mr. Unger, I think, misses the point, which is there was a time when the press was fulfilling its role, and they, for example, investigated, despite a long cover-up, and proved the facts about Nixon and took him down. In this most recent election, the press has lost its way. They acted to suppress news about Hillary Clinton. They acted as partisans to give Donald Trump the business while suppressing and stifling news of Hillary Clinton's egregious crimes. They have forgotten what their role is. They have been partisanized, and that's why Bannon is technically correct.
I don't think they ever knew what their role is in recent years, Roger. We haven't had a fair, ethical press. So it's not even the press anymore. I kind of laugh at that word press coming from obviously when they used to press the papers out. But, the bottom line is this. You said that they're supposed to be you quoted them as saying they're supposed to be the opposition. They're supposed to be adversarial in the sense of truth-seeking. They're not supposed to just outright oppose a president, as we've seen. But that's exactly what we have.
Well, among some, I think we have to be very clear. As someone who deals on a regular basis with a large number of reporters and counts some of them as friends, I must tell you, there are some who are on a partisan mission, and the facts and what you say to them will either be twisted or misused in some way. And I don't know why anyone would ever talk to them. There are other reporters who just honest, hardworking people trying to get the story and get it right, who do come to it with no particular ideological or partisan bias. You can't just throw the entire, media into one bucket and say they're all corrupt, they're all dishonest. All right, so dissecting the mass media and the establishment here on The Stone Cold Truth with Tyler Nixon. We've got a great lineup, and we will be right back. Welcome back to The Stone Cold Truth. We are broadcasting from the Stone Zone. I was honored to hear that when there was a small demonstration outside of Trump Tower of around 50 pro-Trump supporters, which was covered in the media, about the time that work let out, the streets were flooded with pedestrians, many of whom would stop to shout derisive things about the patriotic Americans supporting our president, like Nazis, go home. But my favorite was a black gentleman who shuffled by and yelled at the top of his lungs, "Y'all in the stone zone. That's what's the matter with you. Y'all in the stone zone." So I'm honored. Tyler Nixon here with me. We are honored to have a great lineup today. We are waiting to connect to one of the.
No, we have Randy. He's on hold.
Almost excellent. We are now going to go live with Randy Credico. Randy and I are both friends and great admirers of Professor Irwin Corsi. Irwin Corsi was, of course, the world's greatest authority, one of the great comic geniuses of early television, a firm believer in smoking enormous amounts of marijuana, a man who died only recently, very late in his life. So welcome to this mini tribute to Professor Irwin Corsi.
However, yeah, thank you. Last night was his funeral in Greenwich Village. It was completely packed, and a lot of great people showed up, and I had a great time. I did a eulogy, and, Irwin died last week. I was with him. He came out of the hospital last Sunday, and I was there Saturday. I stayed the night at his house. He's 102 and a half. 102 and a half. He was still smoking pot that day. Okay? He smoked pot every single day. I said, "Do you always smoke pot?" He says, "Always, unless I run out." I said, "What do you do then?" He says, "I smoke hash."
Which goes to show you, marijuana, it's a recipe for a lengthy life.
It clearly has something to do with longevity.
I think so, but maybe it's the tasty cakes too.
Randy, let me ask you this: Did you do the eulogy as yourself, or did you do it as Dick Nixon?
I did it. Well, I threw in some stuff. I said, "Irwin, I know he ran for president in 1960. I was hoping he would take some of the liberal vote away from Kennedy, and that time I was hoping he would take vote in Chicago away from Kennedy. Unfortunately, Irwin didn't get on the ballot, so they had to write in his name."
Now, did Al Sharpton show up at the service?
He was outside and taking a collection. "I need 5 $20 bills if you want to get in. In lieu of flowers, please send some money to the House of Justice." Clearly, this is something I think that Irwin Corsi would have appreciated.
And how about Jesse Jackson? Did he show up?
I think he was there for just a couple of minutes. That this man was one of the great liberals of all time. I would say up with hope and down with dope.
Now, I understand that a small group of people actually thought they saw, this is hard to believe, Strom Thurmond. Was Strom Thurmond in the house? Did we lose Mr. Credico in our...
No, you did not lose him.
Oh.
Is he here?
Yes. Was Strom Thurmond in the house?
He was there. Yeah. I can't believe I die young compared to him. But I asked him one question before he go to heaven there. I said, "Do you think Jeb Bork qualified to be on Supreme Court?" President Reagan said qualified. My friends say he qualified. Richard Nixon say he qualified. And so did Arlen Specter say he qualified. Should Jeb Bork be on Supreme Court?
Very few people, I think, have recognized the similarity in speech patterns between Buckwheat and Senator Strom Thurmond. I understand a small group of folks got together and offered a prayer for Hubert Humphrey.
Yes, they did. And let me just say this. Like, this punch showed up. I want you to know Jesse Helms was there, and I'm tired of that senator from Kentucky, McConnell. were imitating me. He's taking my voice and my positions, and he's stealing my act. That's what he said. And I just want to say, Ted Kennedy showed up, and for those whose cares have been Irwin's concern, the fight goes on, the cause endures, and Roger Mudd will never be remembered.
All right, Randy Credico. So, Randy Credico, I must tell you, I'm a student of these things, and I'm familiar with the work of Rich Little, and I'm very familiar with the work of the late David Fry. Now, all three of these gentlemen did a Dick Nixon, but having spent a lot of time with the former president, I must say that Mr. Credico, when he does his serious Nixon, really has the cadence and the speech pattern down.
There's two Nixons, by the way. There's two Nixons.
There's the over-the-top Nixon.
I borrowed the first one from David Fry's A Fantasy, Richard Nixon. It's the whole Watergate thing where he's having this dream. It's a great album. So I used to just do that one. Pat, walk the door, Pat. He had this thing, really characterized. It was a caricature. Richard Milhouse Nixon. And it was unbelievable, his impression of Richard Nixon. But then there was the other Nixon when he was talking to Frost. I think that we should go in and undo this government because Saddam Hussein is a danger to everybody. I saw him in this interview back in '78. And then, of course, all people, as they get older, their voices change. Walter Brennan, for example. You remember Walter Brennan when he was in Sergeant York? He was there with Gary Cooper. He was in that film. Then he got older and he got a little bit higher. He was in a movie called How the West Was Won. He was a little higher.
No,
this
would be very.
He was way up here, way up here.
This would be very entertaining if anybody had the slightest idea who Walter Brennan was besides us. Randy Credico.
Let's go to Jimmy Stewart then.
Mega talent. Joining us here. Where else can you get this kind of comedy but at the Stone Cold Truth?
This is Reverend Jesse Jackson, and we're listening to the Stone Cold Truth.
Welcome back. Here with Tyler Nixon and Roger Stone on the Stone Cold Truth. We are going to open up here, I guess, for a few questions. Before we go on our list of guests. So, Tyler, why don't you pick it up?
Sure. I believe we have some callers who want to call in. And if you ever want to call the show, there'll be times when Roger's not going to necessarily make it, and I would pick up the hosting duties. The number is 877-300-7645. Again, that's 877-300-7645. So can we get the first caller in?
I see.
Okay. Well, listen, if you want to get on the show now, call right now, 877-300-7645 to talk to Roger Stone and Tyler Nixon here on the Stone Cold Truth Radio on the Genesis Communications Network. So while we're waiting for a caller, Roger, and I'm sure the lines will light up forthwith, real quick, Lindsey Graham and the Russia sanctions. Just unbelievable. I mean, as if Trump does not have the entire media establishment, Washington, D.C., political establishment, and the hardcore left against him. We got to have these quislings in the GOP always popping up.
Well, and frankly, I am tired of this entire meme of the Russians hacking the election and tipping it to Trump. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. The so-called investigation, which was carefully timed to leak on page one on the day of Donald Trump's inauguration, is the final insult is bogus, and they're literally, at least as far as I know, nothing to investigate. There is no link of even communications or control between the Trump campaign and the Russians. It's a false narrative that the intelligence community has stuck to without ever actually producing proof. No Republican member of the House or Senate Intelligence Committee has seen evidence of this hacking or the effective tipping of this election. It's a canard. We have the CIA's assessment. We have their judgments and their briefings. But what we don't have is proof. That's because it largely did not happen.
Yeah, that's how. And that's how. Oh, we've got a caller from South Carolina. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. You're on with Roger Stone and Tyler Nixon on Stone Cold Truth Radio.
Yes, how you doing today, Roger?
Excellent.
Yes, thank you for responding to me today. I love the book.
Great, thank you very much. I'm very, very proud of it. I think it is the best book I've written. It is a true, balanced insider's view on the greatest political upset in American history.
And I'm so glad he is the president right now. I feel safe every night that he is.
Well, he's a man of enormous courage and enormous boldness. He has to be careful not to be either swayed by the siren song of the establishment types who are now trying to kiss his derriere, and he should not be swayed from his overall mission. But if he sticks to his agenda, he's a can-do guy. He is a man who thrives on accomplishment and action, and he will never settle for anything but the very best. So I'm very, very optimistic. I do have a concern that by being magnanimous after victory and opening his White House staff to many, many Republican establishment types, that some people there are leaking and retarding his agenda. That's, I think, his great danger is not the Democrats, it's the establishment Republicans.
I agree. What do you think about the Vault 7, the WikiLeaks bomb that's going to come out next week and anonymous?
Well, I don't know much about it because, in all honesty, I've been very aggressively on the book tour. I don't know what Vault 7 is or what's in it. I do recall at some point there was a promise of additional email regarding John Podesta, as if the crimes and outrages that we have seen so far in his email records are not enough. So, and I am not, even though many in the mainstream media refuse to believe this, in daily contact with Assange telling him what to do or vice versa.
I know. It's a disgraceful lie what they're doing to you.
Well, it's censorship. In other words, if they can't argue with your refute your argument with facts, they try to stifle you. It's very clear that my Twitter feed is being manipulated because the number of retweets of my material has dropped precipitously with no explanation. I have had people analyze it. We'll see how that comes out. It is.
What do you think of the impeachment move of Trump? They're trying to impeach him already.
Please give me a break. He has performed no impeachable infractions. Look, David Brock and some on the truly loony left have a prospectus, as it were, out of what they intend to do, which is fortunately fell into the hands of right-thinking Americans. And it's a game plan for censorship and Nazi-like strong-arm tactics, smear, and hectoring, harassment, enormous harassment. And he gets these fat, dumb, rich liberals to give him millions of dollars. Brock and his associates evade taxes, line their pockets handsomely, but as they show in the last election, they accomplished nothing other than stirring up a lot of hate speech. So it is amazing, and we're going to talk later to Dr. Jerry Corsi, who is going to explain exactly how Brock is trying to infiltrate Google, infiltrate Facebook, work with them to close down what they call fake news. You see, what is really real news, they call fake news. They're the fake news, CNN and others. But they are in a Orwellian manner trying to reverse everything.
Well, listen, we appreciate your call. Thanks so much for calling. Next up is Alice from New York. Alice, welcome to Stone Cold Truth Radio. Alice, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
There you go.
Hi. I know this will sound unorthodox, but I think this is a topic that's important that the president could actually use as some leverage, because it has to happen sooner or later. Over Thanksgiving, I was having a conversation with some friends about compensation for the president and senior members of government. And what was shocking was if you figure that members of Congress, members of the federal judiciary, and the executive, senior members of the executive branch are on duty 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, because they never step out of their roles and can be commandeered at any moment because of a national emergency. They are paid so little. I mean, shockingly little. I calculated that a member of Congress who makes $175,000 a year, by that standard, makes less than $20 an hour, 1998. This is. I have no love for politicians, but this is outrageous. It seems to me that I'm sorry.
If I may respond, here's the problem,
Sure.
and that is legally, politically none of them will vote to raise their own pay. So the only way this could be done would be for a future generation of federal employees at all levels. Therein lies your problem. Therefore, it will never happen because nobody wants to see it in an attack ad.
But if the president does it and leads the charge, that takes off the heat from them, doesn't it? I mean, he's the one president who could do it. Because
a billionaire asking for more money. A billionaire asking for more money. Thanks for calling in to the Stone Zone.
Alice, we appreciate your call. You're listening to the Stone Cold Truth Radio on the Genesis Communications Network with Roger Stone and Tyler Nixon. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Bernie Sanders. And believe me, I know you may not believe me, but you gotta believe me. In my opinion, I like the Stone Cold Truth.
And we like the Stone Cold Truth well. You're listening to the Stone Cold Truth Radio here on the Genesis Communications Network. I'm your host, co-host Tyler Nixon, with the Master of Ceremonies and the host Roger Stone.
Tyler, I am really delighted now to bring in Zilli Donto, a human rights activist, attorney, poet, playwright, very gracious lady, someone who has courageously been fighting the corruption in her home country of Haiti. I don't miss her writings because she has been most eloquent about the rape of the nation of Haiti after the earthquake by Bill and Hillary Clinton and their cronies and oligarch friends on the island. The people have been left squalor. They have been left cholera, while most of the monies that came from humanitarian efforts were stolen by Bill and Hillary and their many cronies. Meanwhile, they divvied out the most lucrative franchises for cell phones and the internet and so on. The rape of that country continues. It was Zilli Donto who first told us about the way the barons were extracting the oil and the gas and the minerals, stripping it from this country, making millions while the people profit not at all. It is now we have reached an extraordinary crossroads because Haitian Americans, indeed, all free-thinking Haitians, looked for Donald Trump for justice in their country. Instead, Omarosa, the White House aide, famous as the Apprentice, has misled the president into sending a delegation to the inauguration of the bogus puppet government of the very perpetrators of the previous rape of Haiti. And to talk about the situation and give us her analysis, I'm delighted to be joined by freedom fighter Zilli Donto. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Roger, for helping us and having me. I really, truly appreciate it. I want to tell you that last interview you and I did on Infowars went viral in Haiti. Everybody's talking about it. So they're asking about Roger Stone. Is he really going to talk to the president for us? Everyone keeps talking to me about that. So I want to tell you that you kind of gave us a little bit of glimmer of hope because it was very hurtful and it was a hard hit that Trump sent a delegation. I mean, a low-level delegation. It wasn't the vice president or anybody like that, but it was a delegation of people that Haitians have been fighting against for a long time. The leftover Obama administration folks, 2 U.S. ambassadors under Obama, Peter Maureen and Kenneth Merton, and Thomas Shannon, who's over at the State Department. And then, of course, Omarosa represented the Trump administration. It was very, very hard hit because we worked so hard not to have the Clintons in Haiti anymore or in the United States. So for the first act of Donald Trump in Haiti to be to send a delegation to recognize this money laundering guy who is the first president actually in Haitian history who's accused of a crime that's in office. And he sent Americans to go witness this travesty. It was hard. It was hard, but I want to say, our interview kind of gave people a little hope. They feel like, well, if Infowars could be standing up and Roger Stone can be standing up and saying, well, maybe it wasn't something that Trump wanted to do, but was someone else somehow misled him. I mean, if that's true, you gave people hope.
Well, I'm going to give the president the benefit of the doubt. I'm not sure he understood the implications of what she was asking for. And I'm sure she told him this was a routine gesture for new presidents. I'm not sure he understood the politics of it. I'm somewhat disappointed that Steve Bannon perhaps was unaware, but this is a violation of Trump's pledge in the election. I think the U.S. Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, needs to know it. The president needs to know the facts. And I think people need to understand the fact that Omarosa, who is an attorney and a television star, has a long association with a fellow named Ron Daniels, who is a slick black Democratic political operative. I'm told he is quite effective. She has visited with him down there in Haiti twice, both before and after the earthquake. He clearly is the running dog lackey of the oligarchs, those who control the cell phones and the other important concessions who are financing this new government so that the plundering of Haiti can continue. We're not just being partisan saying, oh, it's unfair they sent Democrats to the swearing in. No, they seek the imprimatur of the new administration to legitimize what is in fact a viceroy being put in place through not one but two egregiously fraudulent, openly phony, stolen elections.
Exactly. Ron Daniels is someone we know at the Haitian Lawyers Leadership Network. He runs something called the Haiti Support Project, and what the Haiti Support Project does is bring African American intelligentsia, upper echelon, boule folks to Haiti. And, he gets support because essentially what it does, like Haiti's under occupation. We've been under occupation since 2004 by the UN. And they would never have allowed an election like this to go on where it was clearly fraudulent. There's 10 million people in Haiti.
this man is saying he won by only 20% of the people went to vote, and he says he won by 9.5% of the vote, which is something like, so we have 10 million people, he said he won by 590,000 votes. So that's his mandate, by 590,000 votes altogether. However, the three opposing candidates who said that this was a complete fraud, even though there was low turnout and so forth, that it was a complete fraud, they went to the tabulation center and had a verification process. The first day they found that the votes for Jovenel Moïse, 77% of them were fraudulent. So 77% of the 590,000 votes he got were fraudulent. And so once they started looking at all those figures, the oligarchs stopped the verification process and said, we're not going to have this any longer. This is going to be an observation process. You stay on the other side of the room, and we'll tell you what's on these tabulation cards. So the OAS, the UN, and Kenneth Merton, who was Obama's coordinator to Haiti, agreed to this whole entire masquerade. Why? Because Obama essentially, during his 8 years in office, made a deal with the Clintons to get them out of his hair. They were going to give them the cash cow that's called Haiti. And the Clintons made a deal with the Bushes, and they own Haiti. They run Haiti through the Middle Eastern Haiti oligarchs. The Bijots, Akras, Bosan, these guys come from the Middle East. They're Syrians, Lebanese, and some Bijot is a Sephardic Jew. They are billionaires of the Caribbean. They own our ports. The major work is to bring in a lot of them. I'm not going to say all of them, but we call them the 13 mercenary families. And those families, the major business is bringing in sugar, supposedly from Colombia, but they found a boatload of drugs in one of them, and his name is Accra. Now, these guys are all surrounding Jovenel Moïse. They are the ones that finance his campaign. They are the ones that the Clinton Foundation used during the earthquake to do all that they wanted to do in Haiti. And they're the ones in power, and they're the ones that Omarosa Manigault, with probably the advice of Ron Daniels, who is the guy who knows Haiti. He was the first one to bring her down to Haiti.
All right, I'm afraid I got to stop you there because you've given us the lowdown. Many thanks, Zilli Donto, freedom fighter, truth teller, and one courageous lady. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Roger.
Thanks for joining us on the Stone Cold Truth. Welcome back to the Stone Cold Truth. I'm Roger Stone here with my good friend and colleague, Tyler Nixon, attorney, activist, freethinker, raconteur. And we are privileged to have just had Dr. Zilli Donto, a critic of the corrupt regime in Haiti. I had a wonderful time at this year's inauguration, but it was moved really to think through a brief tutorial on formal wear for men. Because while it is true that there is no man who doesn't look good in the stark black and white of what Americans mistakenly call a tuxedo, properly called an evening suit or a dinner suit.
Is that French derivation? I'm just curious, Roger. Tuxedo.
Actually, it is not. I will explain it. And that is, up until the 1890s, men were expected to dress for dinner. And in the upper classes, that meant a stiff shirt front, a white tie, and a swallowtail or a essentially tails. Not to be confused with a swallowtail coat, which is a stroller, not a stroller, but a morning suit and something entirely different. A very wealthy gentleman in Tuxedo Park, New York, got tired of this starchy uniform, and he invented a jacket that was shorter the length of a business suit with satin or grosgrain lapels, and he wore it to a particular charity ball, and it became all the craze, where properly dressed gentlemen all over the world began, first in New York and then the world, began having this garment made and worn. And thus was born the tuxedo, which is why we get the name. Now, the tuxedo, in fact, should never be black. It should be actually midnight blue, because under some lights, black looks green. So a proper dinner jacket, the proper name, tuxedo to Americans, should be, in fact, midnight blue. Additionally, you can have a lapel, which can be peaked, or can be a shawl collar, should be either silk or satin or grosgrain, like a grosgrain ribbon. At no time should a gentleman wear a notched lapel. That's the same lapel that you would see on a business suit. A dinner jacket with notched lapels are for waiters, essentially maitre d's, and the like. A gentleman should avoid them.
What is the purpose of the notch? Why is that is it just an ornamental thing, or did it serve some function?
The notch is really the shape of the lapel. A peaked lapel has a point. A notched lapel, has just an indentation. Now,
but I'm saying, was that ornamental, or was it something that they folded it over?
I think at one time they probably buttoned in the middle, kind of like in any event. Now, the appropriate neckwear. White tie goes only with a white shirt front and tails, a cutaway coat, and solid black trousers. What is required for the dinner jacket is always black bow tie. At Christmas time or festive occasions, a red bow tie would be barely acceptable. A white tie is never acceptable with a dinner jacket. Now, there are two different shirt varieties. One may have the stand-up collar, the winged collar, very 1930s, or one can have the fold-over collar, a collar like you would have on a business shirt, on a formal shirt. But in either case, the shirt front would either be pleats or a white piqué. Now, I saw people wearing white tie with tuxedos. I saw people wearing things that they clearly rented. So in this case, I thought a gentleman ought to know the real guidelines. There is nothing more elegant than the white tie and tails of white tie, as that is called. Many times an invitation will either say black tie, that means a dinner suit, known to you rubes as a tuxedo, and white tie, that's a white tie and tails. And then there is the morning suit. This is my favorite. The morning suit gives you some opportunity for individuality. You can have a gray waistcoat, striped trousers, and a swallowtail coat that does not have a cutaway, which the higher the one button, the more svelte a gentleman looks. I prefer the turn-over collar and a four-in-hand tie, but many have gotten married in this outfit wearing the famous ascot tie. And, of course, as I have talked about before, the top hat, which can be of finely polished beaver or can be a silk or grosgrain collapsible hat. But there is no more elegant look for a gentleman, usually coupled with gray or white gloves. Now, you can switch out the waistcoat to be different colors and textures. You can swap out the trousers to be different types of stripes, so there is still room for your originality. These are worn regularly for weddings in the UK and other formal occasions. Sadly, this is a sartorial tradition that's been lost in the United States. And that is a short guide to how a gentleman dresses for formal occasions with this kicker. Your shoes are all important. Dinner jacket, brown shoes, you are a loser. Tyler, take it away.
Well, there's your fashion corner, your gentleman's dress and evening wear corner here on Stone Cold Truth Radio in the Stone Zone. Where else could you get, besides from Roger Stone, such detail as to how to properly dress and how to look, how to be a gentleman, how to dress like a gentleman? Folks today dress, I mean, it's just like thrown together out of the closet. There's not a lot of detail, I think, given into what a lot of people wear. Well, I take that back. It's definitely a move back towards people looking smart when they dress,
but many look slovenly. They look slovenly. There's no other way to put it.
It's kind of an either or thing, I think. Either they put attention into it and they have those the jeans and the sort of the sport coat kind of thing, and it looks tight, with the more closely fitting stuff, or they're sloppy and slobby.
All right. So coming up on shortly, just to let people have a little preview, we have Travis Irvine, filmmaker, stand-up comedian, now working as a reporter for Mediate, looking for those anomalies and quirks going on in the mainstream media to report on. Dr. Jerome Corsi is going to fill us in on David Brock and what criminal activities he's involved in. And then a special surprise guest, the great Alex Jones, will join us for a few minutes to talk about how he sees the Trump revolution progressing and get his take on the effort to censor us. So stay tuned for more of Stone Cold Truth. Tyler, what do you see looking ahead?
Well, first of all, Travis is just to tease a little bit. He's going to be discussing. He's been camped outside of the NBC studios in New York, trying to ambush some of these writers who have a really grotesque vendetta, I think, against President Trump, excuse me. But he's going to talk about that a little bit. And one of the things that I think struck me this past week was President Trump's interview with Bill O'Reilly, where he said that, are we so innocent as a country? And
we're going to have to come back to it, Tyler, because we're out of town for this segment. But on the other side, see you there.
Sounds good.
Roger Stone is a very interesting guy.
Hour 2 rolls on. Radio on the Genesis Communications Network. We have a very special guest. He's always special to us. Who's joining us from an undisclosed location. Anytime anybody, the Stone Network is broadcasting, it's from an undisclosed location. Travis Irvine is a comedian and writer and libertarian, a former candidate. He is now with Mediaite, and he has been apparently staking out the Rockefeller Center Saturday Night Live studios, staking it out, sort of stalking it out, I guess you could say, and trying to get, I guess, an interview or to get some commentary from this little coterie of Trump haters that have effectively infested what's a once great television show on Saturday nights. I certainly loved it, and I think back in the day it was actually relevant. Now I think with the great, not so great Alec Baldwin coming in there with his really rather pathetic, I think, grotesque attempt to imitate Trump. It has to be funny, folks, if you're going to imitate. If you're going to imitate or do an impression, I mean, it's just it can't be just nasty, attempting to completely destroy the subject. But Travis, can you hear? Are you with us?
Absolutely, gentlemen. Good to be back, and it was nice to be introed with a fashion segment. I, of course, always like to talk about how I've tried to get on Roger Stone's worst dressed list for a while now. My biggest claim to fame is that in 2009, when I went to an inaugural ball, the only inaugural ball I've ever been to, there was a last-minute invitation from Congressman Jack Kingston's daughter and her friend, and I had no tux, so I had to actually wear one of Congressman Kingston's ill-fitting tuxes, and all I had was brown shoes. So I think I was the coolest guy at that inaugural ball, at least for that time being. But
Stone probably had a mini heart attack at that point as soon as you donned that garb.
Travis,
oh my gosh!
Travis, I want to congratulate you. I understand you had a killer week at the Cleveland Comedy Cave 2 weeks ago. They tell me you were in really top form.
Oh, of course. Cleveland Comedy Cave is the only place I perform, and they do love me over there. I'm always happy to go back. In fact, for the next 5 weeks, I'll actually be on a comedy tour in Latin America with the Cleveland Comedy Cave. So I always appreciate those folks bringing me along wherever they want to. But back to Tyler's original question, in terms of comedy, this has been an interesting few months for a sketch comedy show, Saturday Night Live, taking on, the president, which I feel they've done in the past, obviously. The only difference this time is that the president is watching it, and he does not care for it, and he lets the public know. So I've been staking out outside of NBC, outside of 30 Rock, trying to get interviews with NBC stars, Saturday Night Live stars. I actually came up with one of the guys on Weekend Update, Michael Che, on the New York comedy scene. So I know that he's pretty legit, but it has been fascinating to see them kind of run around in circles to get this Trump thing right. You guys may remember, after Trump announced, I think they had Taron Killam doing a Trump impression. Then they had to bring in Daryl Hammond from older SNL years. They had to bring him in to do the Trump impression. And now they've settled on Alec Baldwin. So it's kind of a strange dynamic over there. And what's fascinating for me, at least, is that, we've seen comedians take on presidents pretty harshly at, like, White House Correspondents' dinners. Obviously, the Stephen Colbert performance with George W. Bush was pretty awkward, but in hindsight, pretty great. I felt Larry Wilmore's performance, for Obama's last White House Correspondents' dinner, he definitely cut pretty deep, and that gets pretty awkward. But, this is a stint where, I don't know, I feel, I want to, tell Trump that he should just stop watching Saturday Night Live and stop tweeting about it, because I feel he's
like
only
the rest of
encouraging
us.
them. Yeah, exactly, like the rest of America.
Well, I tell you, I think the ultimate was, it comes down to this. I think to really effectively lampoon someone, you can't actually hate them. You have to have some level of objectivity. Like Dana Carvey, I think Dana Carvey was great as President George H.W. Bush. He did it with real humor, not with hatred beneath the surface of it, so he could run with it. I mean, and Alec Baldwin just comes across, what I see is a nasty man trying to imitate the president. When I look at that his imitation, it's grotesque. It's over the top, and it doesn't work. And I think the show's going to continue to go downhill as long as they keep up this attempt to just basically pimp the left wing sort of agenda that is really interested in destroying the man rather than just kind of making light of it and being lighthearted about it. Frankly, I think Trump's appearance on the show was outstanding. He was great. I mean, it's really
and that's something to remind ourselves of. Is Trump went on that show. He did the show. The episode got huge ratings.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're just kind of turning on him, which is fascinating. But you're absolutely right. There's a level of hatred that Alec Baldwin, he gave up acting a while ago to do activism, and that's what you're seeing play out here. Because you're absolutely right. Dana Carvey and George H.W. Bush were close. I mean, Dana Carvey would perform at functions for George H.W. Bush. Daryl Hammond's impression of Bill Clinton, got him to do benefits with Bill Clinton. I mean, when you do an impression of someone, it's usually endearing. It's usually a sign of respect, and you could perform with that person. I don't think.
And there is one other key point. Baldwin's Trump isn't even good.
No, it's not.
He doesn't even have it. I mean, we had Randy Credico earlier, who I think you got to see him live too.
Randy is fantastic. That's the man of a million voices.
I mean, this guy he doesn't even come close. There have been better depictions of Trump on Saturday Night Live.
And it's also, let's face it, it's because Baldwin is sort of an insider.
He's a hater.
Well, he's a hater, but I'm saying, I think they did it. They're not doing it because it's the best Trump impression or it's even funny. They're doing it because Alec Baldwin.
Who would have thought that Alec turns out to be the dumb one of the Baldwin brothers?
Yeah. Nasty.
Right. My money was on Steven, but actually I think he's a Trump supporter, so he's the smartest, I guess.
Yeah, he is. Well, I tell you, the funniest, I think, when you realize that who's not really trying to directly, wear a costume or anything, was Dan Aykroyd doing Richard Nixon with a mustache.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he did Jimmy Carter with a mustache, too. I mean
the stash should have gone because he could have been in that realm with David Fry and Rich Little, Randy Credico. Really sad, actually.
Well, Travis, you're going to be in Central America. Just, I guess, avoid Venezuela. I imagine you're not doing the Caracas comedy tour, right?
Right. Well, yeah, that's South America. So I'm just sticking to Central America.
Central.
If the Mexicans have any ladders, I'm going to take them away.
Outstanding. Well, listen, we really appreciate you coming on, Travis.
Travis, don't drink the water.
Yeah, we will catch you. We'll catch your reports from Central America when you get back. Folks, you are listening to Stone Cold Truth Radio here on the Stone Zone with Roger Stone and Tyler Nixon. We have a super special guest coming up after Dr. Jerome Corsi. Don't go away.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Those kind words. We are now want to focus our attentions on a cockroach who once again mounts the political stage. I speak, of course, of David Brock, the former conservative activist, flip-flopper, switch hitter, who has, I think most of you know, become a hitman for international criminal George Soros. Recently, Mr. Brock, who runs a series of front organizations whose goal is to harass, censor, badger, and smear any of those who stand up against the globalist order, probably burned through, who knows, $30-40 million or far more in the last election, lined his pockets handsomely, avoided taxes, violated numerous laws shifting money between nonprofits and hard political committees, evaded taxes. We are going to be joined now by Dr. Jerome Corsi, who has now tracked the latest shenanigans of Mr. Brock as he seeks to burrow into Google and Facebook in an effort to begin the mass-based censorship of the real news. You see, this is Orwellian. When they call us fake news, it means we are the real news. And the more they claim that they are the real news, of course, the more the CNNs and others who jump to Brock's tune on occasion are, in fact, the fake news. So, Dr. Corsi, you have a landmark piece on this. I hope you will walk us through it. Dr. Corsi, now as the Washington Bureau Chief for Infowars.com, formerly of the World Net Daily, joins us now.
Roger, great pleasure to be with you. And the piece I wrote in Infowars last week, we found a briefing book. It was obtained by the Washington Free Beacon. This was a briefing book that David Brock had put together for his donors. It was meant to be private and confidential. But what this briefing book made clear was that Brock had really invented this term, fake news, to be a narrative that the left could use to charge various conservative and libertarian internet media delivering news, including Infowars.com and others like Breitbart.com, were doing fake news, largely because the news reported by Infowars or Breitbart disagreed ideologically with what Brock considered the hard left ideological position, and so therefore had to be branded as these terms alt-right, which Brock's whole goal was characterized as white nationalist, anti-Semite, misogynist, racist, these hate tags, and the goal was essentially by David Brock now to enlist Google and Facebook in shutting down any use of advertising or Google or Facebook for revenue that a website like Infowars.com or Breitbart.com might attempt. So
which
it's
is
really
ironic, really, Dr. Corsi, in view of the fact that Google, having contributed handsomely to the Clinton campaign, having worked with their search engines to benefit the Clinton campaign, but who is now trying desperately to become best friends with the Trump administration, as there are regulatory things that interest them enormously from the point of view of making money, that they would cut their own throat by following the draconian plan of Mr. Brock is surprising.
Well, I think it was all meant to be wink, wink, Roger, because no one was ever supposed to see this brief book. And when Google, for instance, said that a list of fake news sites was not going to be able to use Google's ad facilities, Google never thought that would be linked back to David Brock. It's this briefing book that makes the link.
Yes.
And establishes that fake news is really this ideological term.
Yes. The lawyers are poring over this because there are, I think, a number of legal issues. That Brock has any credibility at all, given his track record, is extraordinary. And pardon me for being cynical, but this entire plan, which includes the impeachment of Trump, and is a blueprint for harassment and censorship and bullying by the lavender pantied crowd around Brock of sycophants, of psychotics who are constantly barraging me with hate mail and with hate tweets. This is really stuff for a really dumb, rich donor who wants to lose their money. Brock oils. He lines his pocket with fees. He takes fees when he transfers money from account to account, washing it through a third party. If I did any of the things that David Brock did, I would be in a federal penitentiary by now.
Well, and Brock's whole scheme is really to enrich Brock, but doing so with this hard ideological determination that you can censor, any conservative or libertarian news media that doesn't kowtow to the hard left's agenda.
And there's another problem, in all honesty, as far as David Brock is concerned, and that is the fact that Barbara Bush wants her wig back.
Good point.
Look, I think that the fact that he has the chutzpah to peddle this get rich quick scheme starring David Brock, a terrific piece in last week's Daily Beast, where professional Democrats who would like to win elections, are saying, Brock, please stop helping us. As you know, in the emails that were released by WikiLeaks, and I'll clean up the profanity here, but they said he was bat blank crazy. These are his own colleagues describing him. Others said that he was a blank lunatic. So, these are his Democratic colleagues. Just think what we think of him on the right.
Well, and also the WikiLeaks made clear that Eric Schmidt, who's the head of Google, wanted to be the chief outside advisor for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, and had even created a company that was going to take all the data that Google has, all the clicks, all the profiling, the micro-targeting, and build it into Hillary Clinton's outreach program, their Get Out the Vote effort, which, most of us using Google have no idea that we're being profiled. That data is being collected ultimately to go into a David Brock program of censoring media by characterizing as fake news all that he disagrees with, and then having Eric Schmidt with Google and Facebook with Mark Zuckerman cooperate, while at the same time you've got Google and Facebook supporting hard left policies and Eric Schmidt trying to be a top advisor to Hillary Clinton. This is an ideological agenda, and it's an ideological agenda which these Democratic operatives feel free to violate laws, as you point out, Roger, to move money around, to tax evade, tax avoid, not just tax avoid, tax evade crime, where they move the money around between various shell corporations that was exposed during the campaign. And, the listeners ought to know that this is a concerted effort being made by Brock with Google and Facebook to achieve ideological hard-left objectives with the data they can collect and to shut down any news agencies, keep them out of the White House, make sure we don't get press credentials, don't get access to the search
All right,
engine.
and there we have it. I'm afraid we got to cut you off there. Dr. Jerome Corsi, many thanks for joining us here at the Stone Cold Truth. Welcome back to the Stone Cold Truth on the Genesis Communications Network. If you have already read The Making of the President 2016, you'd already know that our next guest is an MVP in the Trump revolution. Somebody who can honestly say over the last 15, 18 months has made a material difference in this country turning back onto the road of freedom. And I speak about none other than the big enchilada himself, Alex Jones at Infowars. Alex, I know you very rarely drop in on other radio shows, so we're honored to have you here in the Stone Zone at Stone Cold Truth.
Well, my friend, I'm honored to be on your show anytime, and I can barely hear you. I heard say big enchilada. The network can turn their audio up to me. That'd be fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, Roger, no, I mean, seriously, it's not that I'm some big shot and can't do a bunch of shows. I don't have the stamina you've got when you're in such demand doing 10, 20, 30, 40 a day, doing all-nighters after you were poisoned with polonium. So, it's great to see you there strategizing and getting the word out. I love listening to the show, especially on Sundays when I get on the elliptical. I listen to the archive of it just to learn about what's going to happen in the next week. And I tell you, we talk every day just about the state of the country and the great things our president's doing, so I'm just honored to be here with you. I see some of the detractors commenting on Infowars saying, man, why is Infowars now the Trump radio network? Well, I mean, it's this. The guy's totally delivering on Glass-Steagall, defending our borders, moving to cut our taxes, pulling out of TPP, standing up to the MSM, destroying fake news, destroying political correctness. I mean, this is everything we ever wanted, and so we have to get in the mode of backing Trump and being winners, which most people are doing, and not in the mode of sitting there, nitpicking, oh, well, look, he appointed 3 Goldman Sachs people. Yeah, and he's blowing up the Goldman Sachs agenda. It's on fire. The 3 Goldman Sachs people he appointed all have a background of battling the globalists. I tell you, Trump is turning out even better than I thought he would be, and thank God we don't have Hillary, and thank God we've got your book, which is amazing. I read it on the flight to L.A. and back last week on Joe Rogan's podcast. It was amazing.
Well, I think you have put your finger on it. Earlier in the show, Dr. Jerome Corsi, who is the new Washington bureau chief for Infowars, laid out for our listeners the incredible story of David Brock conniving and conspiring with Facebook and Google to lead the charge against alt-right media and to censor us Stalin style, Hitler style.
Listen, it's already here. It's already here, and it's worse. Trump has an open rebellion at the State Department, attacking him when he's just following the law and actually implementing it. It's clear-cut. Going on the Ninth Circuit, 1,000 already left. The rest that all signed this letter, they should be fired clearly for insubordination. This is the executive branch. It's the purview of the president. It's totally cut and dry. They are in open rebellion with this 4-week-old piece of legislation Obama signed as a total lame duck 2 minutes to midnight before he left in early January, putting the media under the CIA and the FCC, and Brock is involved with that as one of the advisors inside the Trump administration, basically sniping at him. So we have major insurrection going on in this country. This is incredible. I mean, Trump is just so real. That's why they're all flipping out.
Yeah, well, calling Steve Bannon. I mean, Steve Bannon is the one patriot in the House that can be counted on. Like you, Alex, I am very, very concerned about a would-be fifth column within the Trump administration of those people whose only allegiance is to the Republican Party and the Republican National Committee. Those would be the associates of the White House Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus. I am sick and tired of seeing leaks that disserve the president. Leaks that make the president look bad, leaks that shed doubt on the fact that he is in control. Because, believe me, I've known him 40 years. He's driving the train. He's the guy who said to Sean Spicer, yeah, tell them Glass-Steagall is history, that I'm coming for it, that I'm going to restore.
Well, exactly.
I'm going to restore it.
You know, we had the classic Rockefeller Republican, creeping around, the former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, saying, oh, we're not going to drain the swamp. And then Trump said, I never told you that. Go out and apologize. So here's what's happening. They're running, no exaggeration, let's not exaggerate, 300 news articles a week, 2 New York Times, 1 Washington Post this week. Front page Washington Post online, but the front cover of the online journal they had was, Trump gets everything from Alex Jones. Total lie, hoping to manipulate the president on what they see as his one weak point, that he can't stand people saying he's getting his info from somebody else. He gets it from the American people, from his own lexicon, but they are pushing the narrative because they want to cut him off from his base, the Infowars audience, the Sean Stone audience. They are working overtime to sequester him, to cut him away, to put him in an ivory tower. But listen, it's a paradox. He's got horrible people all around him. He's got some good people. He's delivering on everything he said, while his own people try to undermine him just 24/7. It's epic, and I keep overusing that word, but it's true. It is transcendental, the amount of hell that Trump has gone through and how well he's delivering. But it is a paradox because he's simultaneously surrounded by enemies within and without.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. We went through this with Ronald Reagan, and Reagan essentially made much of the same error where he opened his White House staff to the Bush-Baker establishment wing of the party. Fortunately, like Donald Trump has Steve Bannon, Ronald Reagan had Ed Meese and had some who kept the flame of Reaganism alive, particularly in the economic area, where he stuck to his guns on tax cuts, refusing to raise taxes.
Paul Ryan and his operative, the White House staff, Priebus, they're like, oh, we'll do Obamacare maybe later than a year or two, do some tax cuts. No. They're trying to block his agenda. And Trump knows the globalists are trying to plunge the economy right now, talking down the Trump, recovery, the Trump euphoria, to try to destroy the anti-globalist agenda that's exploding. Same way they're bullying people in England, trying to stop them with the Brexit with economic weapons. So it is a huge time to be alive. And tomorrow, I'll be live tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. Central, covering all this. You're always welcome to join me if you like, Roger, if you're not too busy. But again, just a great time to be alive. But folks, support Trump, pray for him, and spread the word, and keep Fox News and all the big so-called conservative networks feet to the fire that we want our own country, we want a middle class, we want out of the New World Order. That's what this giant sea change is about, and it's sweeping the world. It's a lot bigger than Donald Trump.
Roger, you mind if I jump in here real quick?
Please, go right ahead.
Alex, hey, it's Tyler Nixon. Brother, I want to thank you for all you've done over the years. I've been a big fan since back to the days when you were ambushing those DUI checkpoints and exposing that kind of tyranny on the local, what I call little big brother. I'll tell you what's epic is what Infowars, which you have led the charge in terms of the alternative truth media, if you want to call it that, more like, we know Operation Mockingbird was a real deal, where the CIA infiltrated news organizations across the board. Where do you see in the big picture the sort of that media complex?
Sure. Let me break down here for you. Let me just go in the building real quick. I'm walking there into my building.
Sure, no problem.
Let me break down the big secret. Okay, this is it. The CIA, set up in 1947, basically by elements of British intelligence and others, really thought they were bringing in the cutting-edge new globalism, and they thought that they were the counterculture, and they were able to seize control of the counterculture and be the cool guys. Well, now that patriots and conservatives and libertarians and real Christians are the rock stars again, as we should be, because we're promoting freedom and what works, the CIA is on our side almost entirely, except for globalist analysts, other people. The FBI is on our side. That's why the globalists are in so much trouble, not just here but in Europe, is because the intelligence agencies are now on our side. Most of these people aren't bad people. They buy a false template a false paradigm that globalism is this good deal. Now that all the documents have come out in WikiLeaks, we know it's a screw job on poor people and the middle class, and it's anti-human. It's over. It's over. They can do whatever they want to Trump or us or anybody. Nothing will stop an idea whose time has come. No army can stop an idea whose time has come, to quote Victor Hugo. And, of course, I love to quote Mark Twain in the beginning, a patriot scarce man, hated, feared, and scorned. But in time when his cause succeeds, it's him to join him, because then it costs nothing to be a patriot. We're entering that grand phase. It's going to be a hell of a war. We might kill ourselves all in the process with nukes, but barring that, bioweapon or nanotech releases or whatever, barring, the Atlantean crisis that we're approaching, we're going to make it to the stars. And this is a great feeling to be part of the right side of history, man.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so funny you say that. I was literally, before you even said that, writing down, Richard M. Weaver wrote a book in 1948 called Ideas Have Consequences, and he spoke of the great stereopticon, he called it, which was this sort of big honkin' media thing that was created essentially to push down propaganda and to sort of inure the masses into a certain mindset. And you're absolutely right, though. The ideas...
And we see the results of globalism and political correctness. A bunch of chicken neck jellyfish, everyone unhappy, a bunch of people living in their parents' basements, just a hellhole. So no, thank you. We don't want your limp-wristed New World Order. We're done. Thank you very much. We drank the poison. We vomited it out. And we're moving on now. So you keep fighting. Okay. No, that's always part of it. It's not like we're offering some utopia. But let me tell you, freedom, anti-globalism, nationalism, men and women, families, basic stuff like that, the species, humanity, not letting a bunch of scientists reinvent us because they want to play God, that's a lot sexier than the New World Order. So guess what? It's a beauty contest. We win. America is a big-titted hit. That's an Alex Jones quote. America is a big-titted hit. She's got the sexiest ass ever, the most beautiful hair, the curves, the eyes, the lips, and the brain to back it, and she's back.
All right. Alex Jones, the great Alex Jones, thank you so much for catapulting your way right in here to the stone cold truth. Thanks so much.